So guys, recently I said tone curve is the one. It's the magic that if you know how to use it in photos, then you can translate it to Premiere Pro or any editing software. And although I still think that's true, just looking at how I use Premiere Pro, so looking at my recent music video, called The Creative Act.
Raising my skills to the levels of my taste. It was never luck, it was fame. A joyful escape to elevate above the estate. Fascinated by what I could create. Curious from day. Now I get.
Basically, I brought this out 6 months ago, but just to analyze a scene that I like, color-wise, like that. I love the color on that. Now, looking at this, basically, I thought I used curves, and as I said, if you know how to use curves, you can make it work in video editing. But as you can see here, well, actually, let me actually click on the clip because there's a few things going on here. So let's zoom in. So as you can see, I have 3 lumetries here. So like, let's take everything off. So this is the base. This is how the image was shot. So yeah, it was in an alleyway. It was quite a yellow light, and then I brought like a bluey purple light, and I just love the contrast of the yellow against the blue. So I've got a preset that I made for my Canon RP, which is actually based from my photography presets. So essentially, when we look at the color wheel, it'll show you what it's doing. I put a tint of green in the shadows. The midtones have like a tint of red, purple. You can see it even changes as I change it. And then the highlights have a tint of yellow. Now, this is an actual, I don't think I changed this. I think this is my actual look that I put on most of my video stuff. And that's it. There's nothing else actually going on. I could actually turn everything off because literally that's the whole look. Everything is within the color wheel and match. Well, I don't even use it for the color wheel and match. I just love it because where tone curve, tone curve makes sense because look, at the end of the day, if you go to, if you go to your red channel and you wanna, let's say we put 3 dots here, show you how I'd use it. If I want more red in the shadows, you know, I just turn it up there. If I want more red in the midtones, I just turn it up there. Ooh, kind of looks like a halation to a certain extent. You know, if I want more reds in the highlights, I kind of go there. Actually, that's what halation would do. I should have done that sooner. I kind of like that still. Although you have to be very careful because if you put it too high up, then it starts to look fake. But anyways, so the tone curve is very simple once you understand that. Basically, if I was you, I would put, and you've never used tone curve before, just put 3 dots. Know that this is like, if you wanted to do like kind of fade a film, this is how you can fade the green into like the darkest areas, as you can see. So the green starts to take over the black. But generally, unless you're looking for that look, you'll only want to do hints of basically pushing the midtones. No, this is the midtone, sorry. Pushing like the shadows, midtones, and the highlights here. You don't want to touch this too much. I mean, I would in the sense of experimenting, but most of the time you'll only be messing around with these 3 areas if you don't want to make it too extreme. And yeah, once again, I think the tone curve is super powerful, especially when you're in Lightroom. But I wanted to make this video just to be transparent in the sense of, yes, although I think the tone curve is the one, from actually looking at how I use Premiere Pro, I mainly use the color wheel and color match here. And to be honest, I guess, although I know how to use the tone curve, what I love about this is that you've got a visual representation of what's actually going on. Obviously, you do with the tone curve, but this is more straightforward. This one, like if you never used a video editing program before, or even a photo editing program, if you just saw these 3 color wheels and you see it literally says shadows, midtones, highlights, you know that if you start, it's usually in the center. So if I reset it, It's usually in the center. You know that if you go to highlights and you're like, oh, I want more red in the highlights, you could just do that and it becomes more red. So that's, let me just undo. That's what I like about it. It's like it's just straight to the point and you understand what's going on. Now, just to explain about my process through the creative act and how I created this look. Although it's slightly different, I think, on different scenes. We're not going to go into it now because I don't want to make this video too long. If you want me to go more into the creative act as a song, as a video, XYZ, I can do that in another video. But essentially, I have my base look. What is it? Hold up. I have my... Is it my base look? Anyway, I had like a kind of base look, which I think is my film look, although it doesn't say Canon film look. Maybe, yeah, they look the same. So yeah, I got my base look, which is my Canon RP look, which I made in 2023. I think I did an update in 2024, but I think the update is pretty much maybe the effect stack. So 3 of them put together, well, 2 of them put together, and then exposure I'll just do as of when, if I've shot too dark or if I think it's too bright. So anyways, so yeah, I've got my base look, which is, as I said, it's like puts shadow, it puts green in the shadows and blah blah blah. And then what I done here, which I found quite interesting, is that I, by accident, when I was like copying and pasting my looks to different clips, I accidentally pasted the same look on top of itself. And I was like, raw, like the way it brings out the greens even more vividly and the blue even more vividly in the face and the yellow even more vividly in the background. It's almost like a saturation effect, but it just felt richer than saturation. Saturation, you know, sometimes it can make the highlights a bit too harsh, whereas this, it just makes the color richer. It's not, it is saturating, but it's just making it richer, if you know what I mean. It's still got that cool tone, but it's just richer. So I was like, man, you know what? That's actually going to be the look. I've never done that before. Usually I just put one look like this, but just the fact that it's just made it richer, I'm like, all right, boom, like double up on the look and it looks better. And then I just put a little exposure on there because I felt like it was getting a bit too muddy in the mid-tone. So like, as you can see, like the highlights on my arm just are where they're supposed to be. They're not too dull, and it just breaks up the color a bit. And it's literally just exposure I've done. And I've even wrote it as a when I renamed. Actually, I put the exposure up by 1. Maybe originally I put it up by 2, but yeah. So that's an effect stack with Lumetri. But yeah, as I said, I just want to show this video because as much as I think curves is the one, in reality, to be honest, if you're a beginner, you just gotta go through all of this, go through basic correction, like you would in with your photos. So you know that your exposure, contrast, highlight, shadows, whites, blacks. That's where you start off, and especially color, you know, white balance. Although try and get the white balance right in camera, especially if you've got a camera like me that hasn't got the full, can't shoot raw. Well, for photos it can, but for video it can't. You want to make sure you get your temperature, white balance correct in camera, because you haven't got as much leeway to mess around with it in the computer if it's baked. But then mess around with creative, and obviously there's looks that you can download. There's looks that that's already in Adobe, but I think you can create your own look, honestly, with Color Wheel. What I even find interesting about Color Wheel, I'm not going to show you in this video, is that this comparison view, I think, yeah, you can put a scene here as a reference, and then literally, let me see if it works here. If I'm like, I've already treated this video, so it's not really going to work. Let's say I like this shot. No, that one's not going to work. Maybe it'll work with the green. No. Yeah, anyways, comparison view is you put your reference in here, and if you press apply match, it'll literally try and match the scene as close as possible, which I think as a beginner, it's great. It's great to see what it's doing to the actual color wheel. But once you've put the reps in and understood how to really work with shadows, midtones, and highlights, I think you can start creating your own looks in here because it's just so straightforward. It makes it so easy. Just so you know, these bars make the shadows darker or brighter. So say for instance, let's just take it off this comparison view. If I'm like, I want the midtones to be even more brighter, go here. You can see it makes it brighter. There's so many things you can play with. Like, you know, I could do the same thing, obviously, in basic color correction, but obviously in basic color correction, I mean, it would be very similar. I don't know. I don't think this dials it in just for the like red and purple. Maybe it does, but similar to, from what I'm aware of, similar to basic correction, you can start messing around with the shadows, midtones, and highlights just in here. So yeah, to go back to the point, I love tone curve, and it's what it's been a game changer for the way I edit photos. But if you're a beginner, use everything and you'll get a taste for what works for you. But I would say using Premiere Pro, from my experience, to dial in a look that you like, and even the way that they put the comparison view in Color Wheel and Match and called it Color Wheel and Match. Color Wheel and Match is the place where you create your looks. So unlike Lightroom, where I'd say tone curve is the main place I create my looks, Color Wheel and Match is where I create my main look in Premiere Pro. And as I said, they even make it easy for you that if there's a reference like The Matrix or Blade Runner or whatever film that you're loving and you're like, I really like that look, you can put it in comparison view, put your reference frame here, and literally apply match and it'll try and match it. So yeah, I just wanted to give you some game if you're not aware of even comparison view. Comparison view, by the way, well, it's also good for just color matching, for color, like when I'm color grading, I always put comparison view just to make sure that my shots align. I haven't used it a lot for referencing because I don't know how new it is. Maybe it's came about in the last 2 years, but I definitely use it for if I want to reference like an end frame to like a start frame or another frame, you know, just to make sure there's that consistency throughout my video. So yeah, that's about it for this video. I just wanted to be transparent for the fact that I said, you know, tone curve is where the magic happens. But if you're in Premiere Pro, for me anyway, color wheel is where the magic happens. And just to end off the video on one little other thing, I could do a full-on tutorial, but there's enough people doing it out there. But if you want me to go more into it, I'm more than happy. But HSL secondary, I use that for dialing in on the skin. Now this video is obviously quite creative with color. You never really see my skin color. You see the fill lights, always a color. So here it's red, here it's blue. I wanted there to be a lot of you know, the shot you just saw there, it's blue, but I wanted there to be a lot of contrast of color, and my thing's always about color, so you don't necessarily see that in this video. But if you want me to go into the HSL and how it can really dial in and really get precise on the skin tones, then I can do that in another video. But that's it for this one. Any questions, put it down in the comments, I'll get back to you. Alright, peace.